Entire civilizations don't just disappear overnight. Yet something did exactly that, mind-swiping a massive empire from existence, so completely that today's historians pretend it never happened. For 300 years, every major map in Europe showed the same thing: Tartaria, a colossal realm stretching across continents from the Caspian Sea all the way to the Pacific Ocean. French cartographers drew it with meticulous detail. Dutch explorers marked its boundaries with precision. German scholars documented its territories with academic rigor. These weren't primitive tribes scattered across empty wilderness. These maps depicted sophisticated divisions, independent territories, and thriving regions that rivaled any known empire in scope and organization. The consistency was absolutely staggering. Halve a map, decade after decade, century after century, all showing this vast dominion with remarkable agreement on its borders, its internal divisions, even its cultural distinctions. We're talking about independent Tartary in the west, Chinese Tartary stretching through central regions, and Russian Tartary expanding toward the northern territories. Each section appeared to operate with its own governmental structures, trade routes, and urban centers. Then suddenly, by the 1800s, every trace vanished, not gradually through political upheaval, not through conquest by neighboring empires, not through natural decline or cultural absorption, overnight erasure, complete and total elimination from the historical record. Modern textbooks dismiss it as a meaningless label slapped onto unknown lands by confused mapmakers who simply didn't know what else to call the vast steppes of Central Asia. But that explanation falls apart the moment you examine the evidence with even basic critical thinking. Why would competing nations across European countries that were often at war with each other, jealously guarding their geographical knowledge and trade secrets, independently agree on identical boundaries for 3 centuries if this was just educated guesswork? These weren't cooperation efforts between friendly allies. These were rival powers creating maps for military advantage, economic expansion, and political dominance. Yet they all depicted Tartaria with stunning consistency. Why the precise territorial divisions: Bathined independent Tartary, Chinese Tartary, Russian Tartary, complete with internal borders, major cities and regional characteristics if it was merely blank space on a map waiting to be filled? Cartographers weren't in the habit of inventing elaborate fictional empires just to avoid drawing empty spaces. They were practical people whose livelihoods depended on accuracy. And most disturbing of all, why the coordinated global removal? Why did every atlas, every geographical reference, every historical account suddenly decide to forget this empire ever existed? It's as if some invisible hand commanded the entire academic and cartographic establishment to scrub Tartaria from human memory simultaneously. The answer lies buried beneath our feet. Literally. What if I told you that cities across the world are built on top of something extraordinary? That beneath Seattle's bustling streets, entire buildings sit perfectly preserved like some underground museum, their original windows now positioned at sidewalk level, gazing upward like eyes from a forgotten age watching the modern world pass overhead. Walk through Seattle's famous underground tour, and you'll see something that defies the official explanation. These aren't crude frontier buildings hastily thrown together by gold rush settlers. These are structures with intricate stonework, elaborate facades, an architectural sophistication that supposedly didn't exist in the Pacific Northwest during the late 1800s. The craftsmanship speaks of established civilization, not desperate pioneers scratching out a living in the wilderness. The same pattern emerges in New York City, where subway construction constantly unearths elaborate architecture that shouldn't exist according to official timelines. Workers report finding vaulted ceilings with detailed masonry, ornate decorative elements, and building techniques that align with a completely different architectural tradition than what we're told existed in colonial America. These discoveries happen so frequently that construction crews have protocols for dealing with unexpected historical artifacts. But they're not artifacts. They're evidence of systematic burial, evidence of a world that existed at street level before something covered it with hardened earth and debris. From Chicago to Paris, from London to Salt Lake City, from Moscow to Melbourne, the same pattern repeats with unnerving consistency. First floors transformed into basements overnight, ornate facades buried under feet of hardened earth, windows that once welcomed sunlight now staring up from underground chambers like preserved memories of a different world. Take Chicago's elevation project after the Great Fire of 1871. Official history claims the streets were raised for better drainage and sanitation. But examine the photographs from that era, and you'll notice something peculiar. The buildings being elevated show signs of previous burial. Basement levels that were clearly designed as ground floors. Architectural elements that make sense, only if they were originally at surface level. This wasn't gradual urban development where cities slowly built upward over decades of accumulated debris and renovation. This was catastrophe, a global mud flood that transformed liquid earth into a flowing tide of destruction, swallowing civilizations whole while leaving only the tops of buildings visible for survivors to rebuild upon the hardened surface above. The geological evidence supports this theory in ways that make mainstream explanations seem increasingly inadequate. Soil liquefaction, the process where solid ground becomes fluid under extreme vibrations, can bury entire structures in minutes. Seismic events, plasma discharges from atmospheric disturbances, or even deliberately triggered geological weapons could have caused widespread liquefaction events that preserved lower building levels while making the surface uninhabitable. And the timing? The peak of these burial events aligns perfectly with Tartaria's disappearance from every map on Earth. The same period when cartographers suddenly stopped acknowledging this vast empire's existence coincides exactly with when cities worldwide show evidence of catastrophic burial and subsequent rebuilding. This suggests something far more sinister than natural disaster. This points to coordinated destruction and deliberate historical erasure. Someone wanted Tartaria forgotten. Someone with the power to influence cartographers across multiple nations, to coordinate the rewriting of history books, and possibly even to trigger the catastrophic events that buried the physical evidence. What force could orchestrate such systematic destruction and cover-up? What knowledge did Tartaria possess that was so dangerous it required complete elimination from human memory? Why does this forbidden history feel so threatening that it must be erased from collective consciousness? The deeper you dig, quite literally mission, the more the official story crumbles, revealing evidence of advanced societies, impossible architecture, and a deliberate campaign to make us forget our true origins. The web of connections grows more intricate by the moment. Tartaria doesn't exist in isolation. It's the missing puzzle piece that suddenly makes every other impossible mystery click into place with disturbing clarity. Consider the Bermuda Triangle, that notorious stretch of ocean where ships and aircraft vanish without leaving so much as debris behind. Traditional explanations blame magnetic anomalies, methane bubbles, or simple human error. But what if we're looking at this all wrong? What if the triangle isn't a natural phenomenon at all, but the malfunctioning remnant of Tartarian transportation technology? Think about it. Ancient maps consistently showed anomalous oceanic features in that exact region, hemispheres marked with symbols and notations that modern cartographers dismiss as decorative flourishes. But Tartarian theorists propose something far more extraordinary: interdimensional gateways, portals that once allowed instant travel across vast distances, connecting the Empire's far-flung territories through manipulation of space-time itself. When the mud flood catastrophe struck and Tartaria fell, these portals didn't simply disappear. They became unstable, creating zones where the fabric of reality grows thin. Ships entering these areas don't crash or sink. They slip through dimensional tiers into parallel timelines or alternate realities. The electronic malfunctions, the compass failures, the complete disappearance of vessels mirrors all symptoms of technology operating beyond its intended parameters in our damaged world. The evidence becomes even more compelling when you examine crop circles through this lens. Those intricate geometric patterns appearing overnight in fields worldwide aren't alien messages or elaborate hoaxes. They're imprints left by dormant Tartarian energy systems attempting to reactivate themselves. The mathematical precision, the electromagnetic anomalies detected at genuine circle sites, the way crops are bent rather than broken, all consistent with resonance-based technology, interfacing with our planet's natural frequencies. Each circle represents a node in Tartaria's global energy network trying to establish connection with other nodes. The geometric patterns aren't random artistic expressions, the technical blueprints, activation sequences, for machinery buried deep beneath our feet. When enough atmospheric conditions align, when electromagnetic fields reach the right intensity, these ancient systems pulse to life for brief moments, leaving their signatures burned into crop fields like ghostly fingerprints of a vanished civilization. This connects directly to the systematic suppression of free energy technology. Nikola Tesla's revolutionary discoveries weren't born from pure genius working in a vacuum. They were based on recovered Tartarian knowledge, fragments of understanding gleaned from documents and artifacts that escaped the Great Purge. Tesla's wireless transmission experiments, his claims about harnessing atmospheric electricity, his vision of unlimited energy for all humanity. These weren't speculative theories. They were attempts to reverse engineer Tartarian power systems. But powerful interests couldn't allow such technology to reach the masses. Oil barons, industrial magnates, and emerging power structures understood that free energy meant the end of their control, so Tesla's work was sabotaged, his research confiscated, his discoveries buried under layers of corporate interference and government suppression. The same forces that orchestrated Tartaria's historical erasure continued their work, ensuring that humanity remained dependent on finite resources and centralized power distribution. The connections multiply exponentially when you consider the ancient aliens hypothesis. What if extraterrestrial visitors didn't randomly choose primitive human tribes to uplift? What if they specifically sought out the Tartarian civilization because it had already achieved levels of consciousness and technological sophistication that made contact possible? The megalithic structures, the impossible architectural achievements, the acoustic properties of Tartarian buildings all suggest knowledge that transcends normal human capabilities. Star forts scattered across continents weren't military installations at all, they were sophisticated energy collectors, their geometric designs precisely calibrated to channel and concentrate atmospheric electricity. The star shape itself serves as a massive antenna, gathering charge from the ionosphere and directing it through underground networks of conductive materials. These installations could have powered entire cities, facilitated long-distance communication, even enabled the dimensional gateway technology that made instantaneous travel possible. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this suppression involves the deliberate concealment of giant skeletal remains. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, newspapers across America routinely reported discoveries of oversized human bones, 7, 8, even 9-foot skeletons, unearthed from ancient burial mounds and construction sites. The Smithsonian Institution systematically collected these remains, then made them disappear from public access entirely. Why the cover-up? Because these weren't isolated anomalies or measurement errors. These were the bones of Tartaria's builders, a race of giants whose physical stature matched the impossible scale of their architectural achievements. The doorways that tower 15 feet high, the staircases demanding unnatural stretches, the furniture sized for inhabitants far larger than modern humans, suddenly it all makes perfect sense. These giants weren't mythical beings from biblical accounts or Norse legends. They were flesh and blood humans, evolved or engineered to possess extraordinary size and strength. Their advanced knowledge combined with physical capabilities that allowed them to manipulate massive stone blocks, create precision architectural features, and build on scales that seem impossible to us today. The systematic removal of giant skeletal evidence serves multiple purposes. It prevents questions about human evolution and our true origins. It conceals proof of advanced prehistoric civilizations. Most importantly, it eliminates physical evidence that Tartaria wasn't just an empire of regular humans' myths. It was populated by beings whose very existence challenges our understanding of what humanity can achieve. As we connect Tartaria to Atlantis, to Lemuria, to every lost civilization mentioned in ancient texts, a disturbing pattern emerges. These weren't separate societies scattered across different time periods. They were interconnected parts of a global network, possibly even the same civilization operating under different regional names. The mud flood that buried Tartaria in the 1800s echoes the catastrophic floods that supposedly sank Atlantis thousands of years earlier. What if destruction and rebirth operate in cycles? What if advanced civilizations rise, achieve incredible heights, then face systematic elimination by forces that profit from keeping humanity trapped in cycles of scarcity and control? The mud flood becomes just the most recent reset, designed to bury evidence and force survivors to start over with limited knowledge and primitive technology. Each reset erases more of our true history, more of our potential, more of the technologies that could free us from dependence on those who orchestrate these catastrophes. We're not evolving forward a mere, we're being systematically held back, prevented from reclaiming the wisdom and capabilities that were once our birthright. The shadow elite, whether you call them the Illuminati or by any other name, guard these secrets because knowledge equals power. They understand that if humanity rediscovered Tartarian technologies, free energy, dimensional travel, acoustic levitations, their stranglehold on civilization would crumble overnight. So they maintain the lie, perpetuate the cover-up, and ensure that each new generation grows up ignorant of what their ancestors achieved. But the evidence refuses to stay buried. With every construction project that unearths impossibly sophisticated underground architecture, with every electromagnetic anomaly detected at supposed primitive sites, with every photograph that shows empty city streets beneath towering structures that shouldn't exist according to official timelines, the truth claws its way back to the surface. We stand at the threshold of rediscovering our stolen heritage. The question isn't whether Tartaria existed missioned. The evidence overwhelms any honest skepticism. The question is whether we're brave enough to dig deeper, to question everything we've been told, and to reclaim the knowledge that could transform our world. What technologies lie dormant beneath our feet? What capabilities were bred out of us through centuries of suppression? What would happen if even a fraction of Tartarian wisdom returned to human consciousness? The answers may be closer than we dare imagine. But first we must acknowledge that everything we thought we knew about history, about progress, about our place in the cosmos, might be nothing more than carefully constructed lies designed to keep us from remembering who we really are. But skeptics aren't ready to surrender without a fight. They present compelling counter-arguments that demand our attention, even as they struggle to explain away the mounting evidence. Traditional historians insist that these towering doorways and cathedral-like ceilings weren't designed for giant inhabitants at all. They argue that grand architecture has always served as a psychological weapon, structures built to inspire awe, demonstrate power, and make ordinary humans feel small in the presence of authority. Those 15-foot doorways, dramatic theatrical elements, those impossibly wide staircases, designed for ceremonial processions where hundreds of people needed to move in synchronized formation. The skeletal remains that fueled so many newspaper headlines throughout the Victorian era. Academic skeptics dismiss them as misidentified mastodon bones, bare skeletons, or simply the sensationalized reporting typical of an age when newspapers competed for readers with increasingly outrageous claims. They point to the Smithsonian's official position that any lost specimens resulted from poor preservation techniques and inadequate storage facilities, not deliberate concealment. Yet these rational explanations only deepen the mystery when you examine the sheer volume of consistent reports. Why do accounts from Victorian-era newspapers align so perfectly with indigenous oral traditions passed down through generations? If everything was fabrication and misidentification, what explains the remarkably consistent measurements, 7 to 9 feet, reported across disconnected societies spanning multiple continents? The patterns become even more intriguing when we explore beyond the visual evidence into something far more subtle but equally compelling: the acoustic properties embedded within these mysterious structures. Step inside any cathedral or government building from the supposed Tartarian era, and sound behaves in ways that defy conventional architectural understanding. Whispered conversations carry with supernatural clarity across vast distances. Echoes don't simply bounce back, they amplify into precise harmonic frequencies that create an almost otherworldly resonance. Your footsteps seem to generate musical tones that linger far longer than physics should allow. The acoustic environment feels deliberately engineered, as if the entire structure functions as a massive instrument calibrated to specific frequency ranges. Modern theorists propose these weren't accidental byproducts of aesthetic design choices. They were intentionally crafted resonance chambers, sophisticated acoustic laboratories where Tartarian builders manipulated sound waves for purposes we're only beginning to understand. Healing through frequency therapy, energy generation through harmonic amplification, even levitation through precise acoustic manipulation of matter at the molecular level. Contemporary research validates the scientific principles behind these theories. Cymatics experiments demonstrate how sound waves can organize sand into complex geometric patterns, creating perfect mathematical shapes through pure vibrational energy. Infrasound research reveals how low-frequency waves can alter water's molecular structure, influence human consciousness, even induce powerful hallucinations and altered states of awareness. What if the Tartarian giants, with their potentially enhanced sensory capabilities and deeper understanding of cosmic frequencies, mastered these acoustic technologies centuries before our modern rediscovery? What if their construction methods relied not on brute physical force, but on precise manipulation of sound waves that could lift massive stone blocks, shape materials at the atomic level, and create architectural marvels through harmonic resonance? The ancient aliens hypothesis extends this acoustic mastery into even more extraordinary territories. Proponents suggest that extraterrestrial visitors from star systems like Orion or Sirius provided the foundational knowledge, sharing technologies depicted in Sumerian cuneiform tablets and Egyptian hieroglyphs. These ancient texts consistently show elongated humanoid figures wielding staff-like devices that emit visible energy waves, nice tools that modern theorists interpret as acoustic levitation instruments capable of manipulating matter through controlled frequency emission. The global architectural consistency across supposedly disconnected civilizations becomes even more mysterious when viewed through this technological lens. From Chicago's neoclassical masterpieces to Moscow's ornate governmental palaces, the stylistic elements remain remarkably uniform. Classical column designs that follow identical mathematical proportions, dome structures that mirror celestial spheres with astronomical precision, stonework demonstrating mathematical calculations that shouldn't have been possible without advanced computational tools. How did separate nations achieve such synchronized architectural evolution without modern communication networks or shared educational institutions? Unless, as the expanding theory suggests, all these structures originated from a single Tartarian source, giant master builders who traveled across their vast empire, disseminating advanced construction knowledge and acoustic technologies to regional populations. Archaeological discoveries continue providing tantalizing evidence supporting this unified origin theory. During San Francisco's massive reconstruction efforts following the devastating 1906 earthquake, construction workers repeatedly uncovered completely intact building facades buried beneath layers of debris. These weren't structures damaged by seismic activity. They appear to have been deliberately entombed long before the earthquake ever occurred. Similar excavations across European cities reveal extensive underground networks of halls and chambers, featuring the characteristic oversized proportions associated with giant inhabitants. These subterranean complexes suggest that Tartarian builders created sophisticated refuge systems, underground cities designed to shelter their populations during catastrophic surface events. The connections between Tartaria and other lost civilizations create an even more compelling narrative framework. Ancient Atlantis, described in Plato's accounts as populated by exceptionally tall, technologically advanced beings, experienced a catastrophic submersion that mirrors Tartaria's mudflood burial. Edgar Cayce's psychic readings of Lemuria in the Pacific describe giant inhabitants wielding crystal-based technologies, with survivors eventually scattering across the globe to establish new civilizations. Graham Hancock's underwater archaeological investigations reveal submerged structures off Bimini and Yonaguni that appear to be massive harbors and ceremonial complexes, carbon-dated to periods that predate officially acknowledged human civilization. These underwater ruins display the same oversized proportions and sophisticated construction techniques associated with Tartarian architecture. Could Tartarian giants represent the descendants of these earlier lost civilizations? Were their impossible architectural achievements actually faded echoes of even more advanced prehistoric technologies? The modern suppression of evidence becomes particularly disturbing when examined through this broader historical context. Why do institutions like the Smithsonian maintain restricted access policies for certain archaeological collections? Whistleblower reports consistently describe secured storage facilities containing giant mummified remains, elongated skulls with DNA markers that don't match any known human populations, and artifacts displaying technological sophistication that contradicts official historical timelines. Ancient aliens theorists proposed that government agreements with extraterrestrial entities require the concealment of hybrid genetic experiments, that giants represented either failed hybridization attempts or successful guardian races tasked with protecting forbidden knowledge until humanity reaches sufficient evolutionary development. Even crop circles may connect to this giant legacy. Uzo's intricate geometric patterns appearing overnight in fields worldwide could encode architectural blueprints left by Tartarian descendants, frequency-based messages that activate when atmospheric conditions align properly. The mathematical precision, the electromagnetic anomalies detected at genuine circle sites, the way plant material bends without breaking is all consistent with acoustic formation techniques that giants may have employed for communication across vast distances. The evidence forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about our understanding of human history and potential. Were giants the true architects of our world's most magnificent structures? Is their technological knowledge encoded in stone monuments, waiting for us to rediscover the correct acoustic frequencies needed to unlock their secrets? The architectural proportions, the consistent mythological accounts, the systematically concealed skeletal evidence, everything converges toward a narrative that challenges our diminutive perception of human achievement. Perhaps we aren't the pinnacle of evolutionary development, but rather the diminished descendants of a far more magnificent lineage. Standing beneath these towering doorways and impossible staircases, we're forced to stretch not just our physical reach, but our conceptual understanding of what humanity once achieved. The stone sentinels remain, beckoning modern explorers to decode their oversized scale and imagine the thunderous footsteps that once shook the very foundations of our world. These weren't crude gas-filled balloons destined for catastrophic failure, like the infamous Hindenburg disaster suggests. When you examine historical accounts with fresh eyes, an entirely different reality emerges from the official narrative. Witnesses described vessels that moved with supernatural grace, hovering motionless against hurricane winds without any visible means of propulsion. Their envelopes didn't simply contain hydrogen gas, they pulsed with electromagnetic fields that seemed to draw energy directly from the atmosphere itself. These craft demonstrated unlimited operational range, traveling vast distances without refueling stops, their silent passage marked only by subtle humming frequencies that resonated through the air. Tartarian theorists proposed these airships represented the surviving remnants of far more advanced engineering principles. Crystal array systems allegedly amplified atmospheric electrical charges, creating controlled electromagnetic fields that provided both lift and propulsion. The technology transcended mechanical engineering. It harnessed the very forces that govern planetary magnetism and ionospheric energy. Historical sketches from major cities reveal sophisticated docking infrastructure that mainstream historians conveniently ignore. Manhattan skyscrapers featured specialized mooring masts designed for precision aerial vehicle attachment. Tulsa's architectural plans included elevated platforms specifically engineered to accommodate regular airship traffic. These weren't experimental aviation facilities, they represented standardized transportation infrastructure for routine aerial commerce. Why do official historical records systematically downplay these remarkable capabilities, relegating them to primitive early aviation experiments when eyewitness testimonies describe craft exhibiting clear anti-gravity characteristics? This systematic suppression connects directly to Tartaria's most dangerous technological achievement: unlimited free energy systems that threaten to destroy the emerging petroleum-based economic empire. Nikola Tesla's revolutionary discoveries didn't emerge from isolated genius working in complete isolation. His wireless energy transmission experiments represented attempts to reverse engineer Tartarian power distribution networks that once supplied electricity across entire continents without cables or fuel consumption. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower project aimed to broadcast electrical power globally through ionospheric resonance, the same principles that theoretically powered Tartarian civilization for centuries. But powerful financial interests couldn't permit such technology to reach public implementation. The tower's destruction represented more than failed investment, it marked deliberate sabotage of humanity's return to free energy abundance. Tesla's funding disappeared through carefully orchestrated financial manipulation involving figures like J.P. Morgan, who understood that wireless power transmission would obliterate petroleum monopolies overnight. The shadowy network of industrial elites worked systematically to ensure that free energy knowledge remained buried in classified archives. Patent applications describing atmospheric energy extraction devices vanished under national security classifications. Inventors who approached viable free energy solutions faced mysterious accidents, funding withdrawal, or professional destruction. Crystal-based power generation formed the technological foundation of this suppressed energy revolution. Ancient civilizations that preceded Tartaria, Milas, Atlantis, Lemuria, and other lost societies developed sophisticated crystal amplification networks that distributed wireless electricity across vast geographical areas. These weren't mystical New Age concepts, but practical applications of piezoelectric principles scaled to industrial levels. Quartz crystals, when subjected to mechanical pressure or acoustic vibration, generate measurable electrical charges. Tartarian engineers allegedly perfected methods for creating massive crystal arrays that could harvest atmospheric electrical potential, store enormous energy reserves, and broadcast power through harmonic resonance frequencies. These installations could levitate construction materials, illuminate entire cities without wiring systems, and power the electromagnetic propulsion systems that drove their airship fleets. The geographical evidence supports this crystal power hypothesis in disturbing ways. Massive quartz deposits appear near suspected Tartarian archaeological sites across Siberia, often accompanied by unexplained electromagnetic anomalies that interfere with modern electronic equipment. The mysterious Tunguska explosion of 1908, which flattened thousands of square miles of forest without creating any impact crater, may represent a catastrophic failure in one of these ancient crystal power installations. The star forts scattered across multiple continents reveal the most compelling evidence of Tartarian energy manipulation technology. Mainstream military historians dismiss these geometric fortifications as Renaissance-era defensive innovations designed to optimize cannon fire angles, but their mathematical precision transcends practical military considerations. The proportional relationships follow sacred geometric principles. Mainstream military historians dismiss these geometric fortifications as Renaissance-era defensive innovations designed to optimize cannon fire angles. The angular configurations create acoustic resonance chambers capable of amplifying specific frequency ranges. The positioning aligns with geomagnetic field concentrations in ways that suggest deliberate energy harvesting purposes. Walk through Fort Ebenemeyer in Belgium or Fort Monroe in Virginia, and the acoustic anomalies become immediately apparent. Sound waves behave unnaturally within these spaces, creating standing wave patterns that can influence physical matter through pure vibrational energy. Your voice carries with supernatural clarity, echoing in harmonic frequencies that seem designed to induce altered consciousness states. These installations weren't military defenses at all. They were sophisticated energy manipulation facilities, designed to focus and amplify Earth's natural electromagnetic currents for practical applications. The star-shaped configuration functions as a massive antenna system, gathering atmospheric electrical charges and directing concentrated energy through underground distribution networks. Cathedral architecture from the supposed Tartarian era demonstrates identical acoustic engineering principles. Structures like Notre Dame or Washington's National Cathedral create massive resonance chambers where sound waves amplify into frequencies capable of affecting human consciousness, healing biological systems, or even levitating physical objects through precise harmonic manipulation. Recent archaeoacoustic research at sites like Malta's Hypogeum reveals how ancient builders deliberately created infrasonic resonance effects that alter brainwave patterns and induce transcendent psychological states. Tartarian masters of this acoustic technology used it not for religious ceremonies, but to power mechanical devices, facilitate long-distance communication, and manipulate matter at the molecular level through controlled frequency emission. The global conspiracy to suppress this knowledge operates through multiple interconnected power structures that profit from artificial scarcity. If free energy technology became publicly available, petroleum empires would collapse instantly. Electrical utility monopolies would become obsolete. The entire financial system built on resource scarcity and energy dependence would crumble, redistributing global wealth and eliminating the control mechanisms that keep populations dependent on centralized power structures. The Hindenburg disaster serves as a perfect example of engineered suppression. Just as wireless power transmission technology approached viable implementation, this highly publicized catastrophe created public terror around airship travel, effectively ending development of anti-gravity transportation systems. The timing wasn't coincidental, mind it. It represented calculated sabotage designed to maintain dependency on petroleum-based transportation infrastructure. Tesla's final years exemplify this systematic suppression. Government agents confiscated his research papers immediately after his death, classifying technologies that could have transformed human civilization. His wireless power transmission experiments were ridiculed, his funding eliminated, his reputation destroyed through coordinated media campaigns, orchestrated by industrial interests that profited from energy scarcity. The Starfort network's global distribution suggests a planetary energy grid that once provided unlimited power across Tartaria's vast empire. From India's Vijayanagara ruins to Africa's lesser-known earthwork installations, these geometric facilities align with geomagnetic hotspots and ley line intersections in patterns that indicate sophisticated understanding of planetary energy systems. Modern Black Project whistleblowers consistently report anti-gravity craft development programs that utilize principles derived from recovered ancient blueprints. Patents exist for over-unity energy devices that produce more electrical output than mechanical input, technologies that violate conventional thermodynamic laws, but align perfectly with Tartarian crystal resonance theories. The extraterrestrial connection adds another layer to this technological suppression. Ancient astronaut researchers proposed that starforts served as landing facilities for spacecraft, their geometric configurations aligned with specific stellar constellations. Crop circles appearing near these sites often mirror their mathematical patterns, suggesting ongoing communication between surviving Tartarian descendants and their original extraterrestrial mentors. Economic interests maintain this suppression through institutional control mechanisms that ensure technological advancement serves concentrated wealth rather than human liberation. The same secret societies that allegedly orchestrated Tartaria's destruction continue operating through modern financial networks, ensuring that breakthrough energy technologies remain classified or discredited. Free energy threatens the fundamental basis of their control was artificial scarcity that keeps populations dependent on centralized resource distribution. Remote Siberian installations still exhibit unexplained phenomena that locals describe as nocturnal luminescence, possibly indicating dormant crystal arrays that continue operating at reduced capacity. European cathedrals, where choirs report spontaneous transcendent experiences during specific acoustic performances, may house residual Tartarian resonance technology embedded within their architectural structures. Tesla's confiscated research papers, hidden in government vaults for over 8 decades, potentially contain complete blueprints for atmospheric energy extraction systems that could provide unlimited clean power to every human being on Earth. The question isn't whether this technology exists. The question is whether powerful interests will ever permit its release. As we peer deeper into history's suppressed chapters, the evidence overwhelms any honest skepticism. Airships that moved silently through ancient skies, crystal arrays that hummed with planetary energy, starforts that channeled electromagnetic forces beyond our current understanding. The technology exists, the knowledge survives, but accessing it requires confronting the forces that profit from keeping humanity trapped in artificial limitation. What if the key to our technological liberation has been hiding in yesterday's forbidden archives all along? The 1893 Chicago World's Fair presents the most disturbing example of this systematic suppression in action. Sprawling neoclassical palaces rising from swampland in mere months, showcasing architectural and engineering capabilities that shouldn't have existed according to official historical timelines. Then deliberate demolition immediately after the exposition ended, as if the entire spectacle served to display Tartarian remnants before erasing them from public memory forever. This wasn't celebration of human achievement, it was exhibition of recovered technologies followed by their systematic destruction, ensuring that such capabilities would remain locked away from public access while maintaining the illusion of steady technological progress under centralized control. The enigma persists, drawing us deeper into the shadows of suppressed history, where tomorrow's solutions wait patiently in yesterday's forbidden wisdom. What you're looking at in these faded photographs represents more than just architectural achievement. it's potential evidence of the most elaborate cover-up in modern history. Over 200 magnificent structures sprawled across 600 acres of transformed swampland, their marble facades reflecting electric illumination that shouldn't have been possible in an age when most cities still relied on flickering gas lamps. The technological sophistication displayed at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition creates a jarring contradiction with the official timeline of human progress, where horse-drawn carriages dominated transportation and industrial capability remained primitive by today's standards. But when you examine the evidence through the lens of suppressed history, this grand spectacle transforms from celebration into something far more sinister, a carefully orchestrated display designed to showcase Tartarian architectural remnants before systematically destroying them forever. The construction timeline alone defies rational explanation. 2 years to design and build structures of unprecedented scale and sophistication, including the manufacturing and liberal arts building that covered 44 acres miles larger than the United States Capitol, the Great Pyramid, and several European cathedrals combined. Official documentation insists these were temporary constructions made from staff, a mixture of plaster, cement, and fiber designed for quick assembly and easy demolition. Yet surviving photographs reveal intricate ironwork details, elaborate glass installations, and architectural precision that rivals permanent monuments built by master craftsmen over decades. How did largely unskilled immigrant laborers achieve such sophisticated results while working in Chicago's notorious muddy chaos, with no previous experience managing projects of this magnitude? The alternative explanation suggests these structures weren't constructed at all, just they were recovered. Tartarian conspiracy theorists propose that Chicago's White City represented pre-existing architectural remnants, ancient buildings unearthed from beneath the mud flood layers that buried the previous civilization. The fair's organizers, led by architect Daniel Burnham, didn't create these marvels, they renovated and polished existing facades, hosting millions of visitors to witness Tartarian grandeur, before the planned demolition erased this evidence from public memory. This pattern of temporary magnificence followed by suspicious destruction repeats across multiple World's Fairs, with disturbing consistency. The 1904 St. Louis, Louisiana Purchase Exposition featured cascading lagoons and palatial structures that rivaled European royal residences. The 1915 San Francisco Panama Pacific International Exposition rose from earthquake devastation with impossible speed, displaying architectural sophistication that shouldn't have been achievable given the city's recent destruction. Each exposition boasted temporary wonders that were systematically demolished immediately after closing, with organizers claiming cost-saving measures justified the destruction. Yet the thoroughness of this erasure raises profound questions about the true motivations behind these events. Why invest massive fortunes creating breathtaking beauty only to deliberately destroy it within months? Chicago's post-fair destruction involved convenient fires that gutted much of the fairgrounds, eliminating physical evidence while creating plausible cover for the systematic removal of potentially revolutionary architectural and technological knowledge. The timing and thoroughness suggest coordinated suppression rather than accidental loss. The architectural consistency across these expositions mirrors Tartarian design hallmarks found at buried sites worldwide. Neoclassical columns following identical mathematical proportions, ornate domes that replicate celestial spheres with astronomical precision, stonework demonstrating engineering sophistication that transcends the supposed technological capabilities of the late 1800s. Chicago's Court of Honor buildings shared unmistakable stylistic DNA with underground structures discovered from St. Petersburg to Buenos Aires, suggesting inheritance rather than innovation. The global uniformity implies a single architectural tradition that predated the fair by centuries, not concurrent development by independent designers working within similar cultural movements. The absence of comprehensive construction documentation becomes particularly suspicious when examined closely. While skeptics point to archived photographs showing workers pouring foundations and erecting scaffolding, conspiracy researchers argue that many images appear staged or conspicuously absent during critical construction phases. The core edifices seem to predate the fair's official timeline, with renovation work disguised as new construction through carefully orchestrated photographic documentation. The fair introduced technological marvels like the original Ferris wheel, much of steel engineering achievement that demonstrated remarkable durability despite its temporary classification. If such innovations could be preserved, why were the magnificent architectural achievements completely eliminated? Only the Palace of Fine Arts survived in San Francisco, now serving as a museum that ironically preserves evidence of what was allegedly temporary construction. Masonic symbolism embedded throughout the fair's design adds another layer of intrigue to this conspiracy narrative. The dedicatory ceremonies featured ritualistic elements that went far beyond standard civic celebrations. Daniel Burnham's inner circle included prominent Freemasons whose influence extended throughout the planning and execution phases. Conspiracy theorists propose that the Masonic Brotherhood served as guardians of ancient knowledge, using these expositions to catalogue and document Tartarian architectural remnants before orchestrating their systematic obliteration. The geometric layouts incorporated pyramids, obelisks, and other symbolic elements arranged in patterns that suggest energy grid configurations rather than aesthetic choices. These installations may have activated dormant Tartarian power systems embedded within the recovered structures, creating the spectacular electrical displays that amazed visitors while concealing their true technological origins. The fair's electrical infrastructure showcased over 20,000 incandescent bulbs powered by alternating current systems, Tesla's revolutionary technology that was just entering public awareness. Yet the underlying power distribution network may have utilized residual Tartarian crystal arrays hidden beneath the surface, amplifying atmospheric electrical charges through harmonic resonance systems that modern science barely understands. The extraterrestrial connection adds another dimension to this technological suppression theory. Ancient astronaut researchers proposed that these fairs provided cover for displaying recovered alien technology disguised as human innovation. The structures may have represented reverse-engineered artifacts from the same starfaring visitors who allegedly aided Tartarian civilization centuries earlier. The White City's rapid construction echoes the precision-cut stonework found at sites like Puma Punku, which seemingly required levitation tools and advanced engineering techniques that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. UFO sightings over fairgrounds during construction and operation phases may indicate extraterrestrial monitoring of recovered technology displays. The systematic destruction following each exposition parallels modern cover-ups like Roswell, where evidence of advanced technology gets eliminated to prevent public awakening to suppressed capabilities. Yet the historical anomalies multiply when you examine the photographic evidence more carefully. Many fair photographs show eerily empty streets and plazas, as if captured in a post-apocalyptic setting where crowds have mysteriously vanished. Long exposure techniques may have blurred moving people, but the consistent emptiness across multiple images suggests either staged photography or genuine abandonment that contradicts official attendance records. The 1871 Great Chicago Fire that preceded the fair's construction conveniently destroyed municipal records that might have documented pre-existing foundations or underground structures. The timing creates perfect cover for concealing the true origins of what would become the fairgrounds, allowing organizers to claim virgin territory where evidence suggests otherwise. Modern digital archaeology conducted through Reddit forums and TikTok investigations continues uncovering suspicious details that official historians prefer to ignore. Blueprint analyses reveal foundation anomalies that predate the fair's official planning phases. Ornate architectural details photographed during the exposition display craftsmanship, sophistication that challenges 1890s technological capabilities. The systematic erasure extended beyond physical demolition into documentary suppression. Key blueprints vanished from archives. Worker testimonies were systematically silenced or discredited. Government intervention through congressional funding created official oversight that controlled narrative documentation, while facilitating the repatriation of potentially revolutionary artifacts disguised as international exhibition materials. Scattered remnants persist in places like Chicago's Jackson Park, where Japanese garden installations and isolated architectural fragments serve as breadcrumbs, leading back to something far more significant than temporary exposition structures. The preservation of these minor elements while eliminating the major achievements suggests selective retention designed to maintain plausible cover while removing the most compelling evidence. Walking through Jackson Park today, sensitive observers report atmospheric anomalies that hint at residual energy fields embedded within the landscape. The lagoons may have served purposes beyond aesthetic enhancement, possibly functioning as components in hydroelectric or electromagnetic systems that powered the fair's remarkable electrical displays. The systematic filling and reshaping of these water features following demolition eliminated potential evidence of advanced power generation technology. What begins as architectural appreciation evolves into profound questions about technological suppression and historical manipulation. If the world's Columbian Exposition represented recovered Tartarian architecture rather than temporary human achievement, then our understanding of technological progress becomes fundamentally flawed. The magnificent structures that briefly graced Chicago's landscape may have offered humanity a glimpse of capabilities that were systematically hidden to maintain artificial scarcity and centralized control. The fairgrounds became a funeral for an empire whose knowledge could have transformed civilization if powerful interests hadn't orchestrated its burial beneath layers of official history designed to keep us ignorant of our true potential. The blueprint evidence lies buried, waiting for brave researchers to illuminate these hidden histories and restore the architectural wisdom that was deliberately erased from human memory. The White City's fleeting glory continues whispering through the wind, urging deeper investigation into the fair's true purpose and the extraordinary civilization whose legacy was briefly displayed before vanishing forever into the shadows of suppressed knowledge. The 19th century didn't just witness random tragedies scattered across time. It experienced a coordinated campaign of destruction, so systematic, so precisely timed, that calling it coincidence requires willful blindness to the patterns screaming from historical records. When you map the catastrophic events of the 1800s chronologically, a disturbing rhythm emerges, devastating fires that consumed entire city districts with surgical precision, earthquakes that struck at moments of maximum architectural vulnerability, pandemics that swept away populations just as they might have remembered what came before. Each disaster perfectly positioned to eliminate evidence, scatter survivors, and create opportunities for historical rewriting on an unprecedented scale. This wasn't nature running amok. This was orchestrated oblivion, designed to bury Tartarian civilization so thoroughly that future generations would forget it ever existed. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871 serves as the perfect case study for understanding these engineered cataclysms. Official narratives blame Mrs. O'Leary's cow and an overturned lantern, but the destruction patterns tell a radically different story. The blaze consumed precisely 3 square miles of the city's most architecturally sophisticated districts, while mysteriously sparing simpler structures that should have been equally vulnerable. Witness testimonies described the flames behaving unlike any natural fire they'd ever encountered. Rather than spreading randomly based on wind patterns and available fuel, the inferno followed deliberate pathways targeting specific buildings while leaving others completely untouched just yards away. Post-fire excavations revealed something even more disturbing. Melted stonework and vitrified building materials that required temperatures far exceeding what wood-burning fires can achieve. These weren't the remnants of conventional combustion. They were evidence of plasma discharge events, superheated atmospheric energy that could selectively target structures with the precision of a surgical laser. Compare Chicago's mysterious fire patterns to vitrified stone fortresses found in Scotland, India, and other locations worldwide. These ancient sites show identical signs of extreme heat exposure that transformed solid rock into glass-like substances. The temperatures required for such transformation suggest directed energy weapons or atmospheric plasma manipulation technologies that align perfectly with suppressed Tartarian capabilities. The timing becomes even more suspicious when you realize the Chicago fire occurred just decades after Tartaria vanished from world maps. The disaster provided perfect cover for the massive urban reconstruction that raised street levels throughout the city, burying entire building floors beneath new foundation layers. Those mysterious underground levels that tour guides now attribute to urban development were actually crime scenes. Evidence burial sites where Tartarian architecture was systematically concealed beneath tons of imported fill material. But Chicago was merely the opening act in a global symphony of destruction that crescendoed through the following decades. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fires present an even more compelling example of engineered catastrophe. While seismologists attribute the 7.9 magnitude tremor to natural San Andreas fault activity, the aftermath revealed anomalies that challenge official explanations. Construction workers clearing earthquake rubble consistently discovered intact architectural facades buried beneath debris layers, not structures damaged by recent seismic activity, but buildings that had been deliberately entombed for decades before the earthquake occurred. These weren't earthquake casualties. They were pre-existing burial sites where Tartarian remnants had been hidden beneath artificial fill materials, only to be exposed when the engineered seismic event shattered the concealment layers. The selective destruction patterns mirror Chicago's mysterious fire. Certain architectural styles suffered total annihilation, while others emerged virtually unscathed. Eyewitness accounts from the pre-earthquake period describe unusual atmospheric phenomena that modern science struggles to explain. Luminous aerial displays resembling aurora effects at latitudes where such phenomena shouldn't occur. Electromagnetic disturbances that affected telegraph communications days before the seismic event. These observations align with theoretical descriptions of ionospheric manipulation technologies that could artificially trigger geological instability through harmonic resonance amplification. The rapid reconstruction that followed San Francisco's destruction reveals perhaps the most disturbing evidence of all: the systematic reuse of buried Tartarian architectural knowledge. Structures that rose from the earthquake ruins demonstrated engineering sophistication that shouldn't have been achievable with 1906 construction techniques, earthquake-resistant design principles that wouldn't be discovered by mainstream seismology for decades, architectural proportions and acoustic properties that mirror the mysterious characteristics found in suspected Tartarian buildings worldwide. The rebuilding wasn't innovation then at sea, and it was salvage operation, where recovered blueprints and engineering principles were implemented, while simultaneously erasing evidence of their true origins through coordinated historical documentation campaigns. The 1908 Tunguska event in Siberia represents the most dramatic example of targeted technological destruction in recorded history. An explosion that flattened 800 square miles of forest without leaving any impact crater. Energy release equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons, yet no radioactive contamination detected at the blast site. Official explanations invoke meteoroid or comet airbursts, but the evidence suggests something far more extraordinary: might the catastrophic failure or deliberate detonation of Tartarian energy systems buried beneath Siberia's remote wilderness. Why Siberia? His historical maps consistently labeled this region as Grand Tartary, potentially the empire's technological heartland where the most advanced energy installations operated. Local indigenous populations reported seeing ancient ruins glowing with mysterious light in the days preceding the explosion. These weren't natural phenomena minor. They were warning signs of massive energy systems approaching critical failure or sabotage. The Tunguska blast may represent the final elimination of Tartaria's most dangerous technological capabilities. Rather than allowing these systems to fall into hostile hands or potentially reactivate, the controlling forces triggered a controlled demolition that obliterated centuries of advanced engineering in a single catastrophic event. The Great Mud Flood emerges as the cornerstone technology underlying this entire reset operation. This wasn't conventional flooding with water, but deliberate soil liquefaction on a global scale, geological warfare that transformed solid ground into flowing slurry capable of swallowing entire cities within hours. The uniform burial depths found across continents, typically 10 to 20 feet, suggest coordinated electromagnetic pulses that destabilize soil particles simultaneously across vast geographical areas. Contemporary accounts from the mid-1800s describe sudden mud surges that engulfed livestock, buildings, and entire communities overnight. These weren't gradual geological processes or seasonal flood events. They were rapid onset catastrophes that left survivors describing the earth itself as swallowing the landscape around them. The technology behind soil liquefaction aligns with theoretical applications of scalar wave physics and electromagnetic frequency manipulation. By generating specific vibrational patterns, solid earth could be transformed into liquid suspension, allowing for selective targeting of architectural sites while leaving surrounding areas relatively unaffected. After the targeted destruction was complete, the liquefied material would solidify, creating permanent burial layers that preserved evidence while rendering it inaccessible. Modern electromagnetic anomalies in locations like the Bermuda Triangle may represent malfunctioning remnants of this mudflood technology. Ships and aircraft vanishing in electromagnetic disturbances, compass malfunctions and electronic system failures, luminous water effects and atmospheric phenomena that suggest residual energy fields operating beyond their intended parameters. These aren't natural oceanic anomalies meant as, they're the ghostly echoes of Tartarian defensive systems that continue operating in degraded modes, occasionally activating when atmospheric conditions align properly. The 19th century's biological catastrophes fit seamlessly into this reset framework. The Spanish flu pandemic that killed millions may have been engineered using ancient pathogens unearthed during mudflood excavations. The rapid global spread patterns that defied natural epidemiological progression suggest deliberate biological warfare designed to eliminate populations who might remember pre-reset conditions or possess inherited knowledge of Tartarian technologies. Even the world wars can be reinterpreted as continuation of this systematic evidence elimination campaign. The targeted bombing of European cities during both conflicts may have served dual purposes: strategic military objectives combined with archaeological site destruction. Dresden's firebombing, Hiroshima's atomic blast. These weren't just military actions, they were field tests for advanced weapons while simultaneously obliterating architectural evidence of Tartarian influence in those regions. The scorched earth tactics employed throughout both wars ensured that any surviving Tartarian artifacts or architectural remnants would be buried beneath new layers of debris, creating perfect cover for coordinated excavation and removal operations disguised as post-war reconstruction efforts. Graham Hancock's research into cyclical catastrophes provides the broader cosmological context for understanding these engineered resets. His evidence for comet impacts 12,000 years ago that obliterated Ice Age civilizations suggests that systematic destruction and rebirth cycles operate on multiple timescales. The survivors of ancient cataclysms may have established Tartaria as their technological resurgence, only to face another engineered reset when their capabilities threatened emerging power structures. This pattern of cyclical destruction ensures that human civilization never accumulates enough technological knowledge to challenge the forces orchestrating these resets. Each catastrophic cycle eliminates the most advanced achievements while allowing enough survivors to maintain basic civilization, creating permanent dependency on the entities controlling the reset mechanisms. The modern Great Reset economic proposals take on sinister new meaning when viewed through this historical lens. Digital transformation initiatives, economic restructuring programs, social control mechanisms disguised as pandemic responses. These contemporary developments may represent the early phases of the next systematic reset, designed to eliminate current technological capabilities while establishing new forms of centralized control over human populations. The 2020 global lockdowns provided perfect cover for coordinated archaeological activities, infrastructure modifications, and population conditioning that mirrors the preparation phases documented before previous reset events. The timing isn't coincidental, but it's operational procedure. Walking through any fire-scarred historic district today, sensitive observers can detect subtle electromagnetic anomalies that hint at buried energy systems still operating beneath our feet. That gentle vibration you feel standing on certain street corners isn't traffic resonance, it's residual Tartarian power grids, attempting to reactivate when atmospheric conditions align properly. The technology remains functional, buried beneath layers of concealment material and controlled by entities that understand its true capabilities. The reset cycle continues, but awareness of the patterns offers hope for prevention. By decoding these historical catastrophes and recognizing the technological signature of engineered destruction, we might finally break free from the cyclical oblivion that has trapped human civilization for millennia. The plasma-scorched skies, mud tsunami burial sites, and war-torn concealment operations all point toward the same disturbing conclusion. Tartaria's destruction wasn't the end of the story. This was preparation for our own potential reset, unless we learn to recognize the warning signs before it's too late. The next cataclysm may already be approaching. The question is whether we'll see it coming in time to prevent another chapter of engineered oblivion from erasing everything we've built and remembered. What if everything we've been taught about human civilization is a carefully crafted lie? Right now, beneath the Pacific Ocean, massive stone structures rest in complete darkness. Structures that weren't supposed to exist. Ancient tablets found in remote temples speak of a civilization so advanced they could move objects with their minds and pull unlimited energy straight from the air itself. But here's the terrifying part. This wasn't just one lost empire. It was three interconnected superpowers that dominated our planet for thousands of years before something catastrophic wiped them from existence and from our history books. The first empire they called Mu, a Pacific paradise, that made Atlantis look primitive. While we were supposedly living in caves, the people of Mu had mastered telepathy, built pyramids that functioned as massive power stations, and created a society so harmonious that war didn't exist. Their crystal technology could harness energy from the Earth's magnetic field, providing unlimited power to cities that stretched across continents. But then came the pole shift. Volcanic eruptions, tidal waves taller than skyscrapers. In a matter of days, an entire civilization that had thrived for 50,000 years simply vanished beneath the waves. The survivors scattered like seeds in the wind. Some fled east to what would become the mysterious empire of Tartaria Mir, their massive Asian civilization that mapmakers once showed spanning from Siberia to the Pacific, complete with impossible architecture and star-shaped fortresses that still puzzle engineers today. Others escaped west, carrying their advanced knowledge to a small island in the Atlantic, where they would attempt to rebuild their lost paradise. They called this new home Atlantis. For thousands of years, these three civilizations, Mucka, Atlantis, and Tartaria Mucka, formed a secret network of advanced societies. They shared technology that could manipulate gravity, harvest atmospheric energy, and communicate across vast distances without any devices we would recognize. Their cities glowed with clean, unlimited power while the rest of humanity struggled with fire and stone tools. Something extraordinary happened on a remote island in the Pacific, and it's connected to mysteries scattered across our entire planet. Right now, 887 massive stone figures stand guard on Easter Island, their backs turned to the ocean, eyes fixed on secrets we're only beginning to understand. But these aren't just ancient statues carved by isolated islanders. These towering sentinels share an impossible connection with underwater pyramids off Japan's coast, with the vanished empire of Tartaria that once sprawled across Asia's heartland, and with biblical prophecies that speak of end-times invasions through dimensional gateways. The evidence is hiding in plain sight on centuries-old maps, in declassified government documents, and in archaeological discoveries that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. What if everything we've been taught about human history is a carefully constructed lie? What if the Mosai statues weren't built to honor ancestors, but to serve as beacons for something far more profound? Nasema, a communication network spanning continents, connecting lost civilizations that possess knowledge we can barely comprehend today. The deepest mystery isn't just who built these monuments, it's why they were all suddenly abandoned, leaving behind only cryptic warnings carved in stone. From the steppes of Siberia where the Tartarian Empire once thrived, to the underwater ruins near Japan, to Easter Island's silent guardians, they all tell the same story. A story of advanced civilizations, devastating catastrophes, and survivors who scattered across the globe carrying fragments of forgotten wisdom. Ancient maps from the 1600s show regions labeled as the lands of Gog and Magog, right where Tartaria existed. Biblical forces prophesied to emerge from the north in the final days. Coincidence, or evidence of a pattern that's been repeating throughout history, with each reset erasing more of our true origins. The rabbit hole goes deeper than anyone imagined, and tonight we're going to follow it all the way down. But the portal connection runs even deeper than most people realize. Ancient texts describe Alexander the Great constructing massive barriers, not just walls but dimensional seals designed to contain forces that exist beyond our physical realm. These weren't ordinary gates made of stone and iron. They were cosmic locks, holding back entities that biblical prophecy identifies as the armies of Gog and Magog, forces so terrifying that even the greatest conqueror in history knew they had to be contained at all costs. The medieval Islamic scholar Al-Tabari wrote extensively about these barriers, describing them as constructed from molten copper and iron, fused together with supernatural fire. But here's what's fascinating. The locations he describes don't match any physical walls, archaeologists have ever found. Instead, they correspond to energy lines, to places where the fabric between dimensions grows thin, places where portals might naturally form. YouTube researchers diving into Tartaria's mysteries have uncovered something chilling. The same regions where Alexander supposedly built these mystical barriers perfectly overlay the territories where Tartaria flourished for centuries. What if this advanced Christian empire wasn't destroyed by conventional warfare, but by something that broke through those ancient seals? Something that required the complete erasure of an entire civilization from our history books. Think about it. Tartaria's technology was reportedly centuries ahead of anything we're told existed. Free energy, advanced architecture, global communication networks. Yet this empire vanished so completely that most people today have never even heard its name. That's not how civilizations fall naturally. That's how they're deliberately erased, scrubbed from existence when they become inconvenient to a new narrative. The evidence doesn't stop with crumbling maps and forgotten prophecies. In the late 1800s, something unprecedented began happening across America. Trains loaded with children Humbers, hundreds of thousands of them, that started rolling westward from crowded eastern cities. The official story, a charitable mission to find homes for orphans. The reality, something far more disturbing that connects directly to Tartaria's sudden disappearance and the urgent need to repopulate territories that had been mysteriously emptied. Between 1854 and 1929, an estimated 250,000 children were shipped across the continent on what became known as the orphan trains. But here's what doesn't add up. Many of these so-called orphans had living parents who were simply too poor to care for them. Others appeared in records immediately following mysterious disasters that wiped out entire communities overnight. Mud floods, they called them. Catastrophic events that buried first floors of buildings and left survivors traumatized and displaced. And the destinations? Rural areas dotted with inexplicable architecture that no local farmers could have built. Massive brick buildings with intricate stonework, appearing in towns that supposedly sprang up overnight during westward expansion. Buildings that look suspiciously similar to the grand structures attributed to Tartarian civilization. The Children's Aid Society, founded by Charles Loring Brace in 1853, claimed they were saving these children from urban poverty and moral decay. Brace wrote extensively about rescuing kids from the dangerous streets of New York, painting himself as a humanitarian hero, but witness accounts from the era tell a different story entirely. Kids were lined up at train stops like livestock, inspected by strangers who examined their teeth and muscles, and distributed with minimal paperwork or background checks. Many disappeared entirely from official records after being placed. Families who took them often used them as unpaid laborers rather than adopted children. But the most disturbing part? The systematic way entire bloodlines seem to vanish from documentation. Children with no verifiable past, no family connections, no cultural memory of where they came from. Why the rush to scatter Eastern children across territories that had been mysteriously depopulated? Unless those territories weren't naturally empty. Unless they had been forcibly emptied by events too catastrophic to acknowledge in official histories. Enter the Independent Order of Oddfellows Mess, a secretive fraternal organization that emerged during the exact same period as the orphan trains. Their mission statement sounds noble enough: visit the sick, relieve the distressed, bury the dead, and educate the orphan. But their lodges appeared in every town touched by these mysterious population shifts, often in buildings that predated the communities they supposedly served. Their basements contained artifacts that archaeologists couldn't explain, Mitra's advanced machinery, unusual metals, inscriptions in languages that didn't match any known local history. When questioned about these discoveries, lodge members claimed they were simply preserving local heritage. But whose heritage? From what vanished civilization? These weren't random coincidences. The Oddfellows worked hand in hand with Freemasons, whose square and compass symbols appeared on buildings that architectural experts can't explain using conventional historical timelines. Both organizations shared something crucial: Mitas access to children who had no documented past, and the infrastructure to place them wherever they needed bodies to fill empty territories. The Masonic connection runs deeper than most realize. Lodge records from the 1800s show unusual interest in displaced persons and orphan bloodlines. Their charitable work always seemed to focus on children with no family connections, No cultural memories, no ties to any traceable past. Perfect candidates for reshaping into whatever demographic was needed to support the new historical narrative. The strangest part. World's fairs during this era featured exhibits called incubatoriums, displays of premature babies allegedly saved by new medical technology. The 1901 Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, the 1915 Panama Pacific Exhibition Niche, all featured these mysterious baby displays that drew massive crowds. But where did these infants come from? Fair organizers claimed they were rescuing premature babies from hospitals and orphanages, using cutting-edge incubator technology to save lives. Visitors reported rows upon rows of glass chambers filled with babies whose origins no one could explain. When pressed for details, administrators became evasive, referring questioners to charitable organizations that often had ties to the same fraternal societies managing the orphan trains. The official story claimed they were saving lives and advancing medical science. The whispered truth suggested something far more sinister. The repopulation program using technology that shouldn't have existed, designed to fill territories emptied by catastrophes that couldn't be acknowledged. Technology that bore striking resemblances to the advanced capabilities attributed to the vanished Tartarian civilization. The Cabbage Patch mythology suddenly takes on darker implications. Children found in gardens, emerging from nature itself, with no human parents to claim them. A convenient story for a generation that needed to believe the massive influx of parentless children was natural rather than orchestrated. The whistle of those orphan trains still echoes through abandoned stations across America, but their haunting sound has awakened something far more dangerous than childhood memories. It sparked a war between truth and deception that's tearing apart online communities and forcing us to question everything we thought we knew about history itself. Right now, at this very moment, thousands of people are hunched over their computers in dimly lit rooms, frantically scrolling through forums where digital warriors armed with historical maps clash against academics wielding peer-reviewed studies. One side presents architectural blueprints that seem to prove an impossible civilization once spanned the globe. The other fires back with geological surveys and carbon dating that appears to demolish every claim. Yet neither side can fully extinguish that nagging doubt, that uncomfortable feeling that maybe, just maybe, the truth is hiding somewhere in the shadows between absolute fact and elaborate fiction. This is the battleground where the Tartaria mystery lives and breathes, where pseudo-history collides with rigorous scholarship in a conflict that reveals something deeply unsettling about our relationship with knowledge itself. Are our educational institutions protecting us from dangerous misinformation, or are they systematically hiding secrets that would shatter our understanding of human civilization? The debunkers come armed with impressive credentials and seemingly bulletproof evidence. The Russian Geographical Society has published extensive research showing that Tartaria was never a unified empire with advanced technology, but simply a catch-all term European cartographers used to describe the vast, mysterious territories of Central Asia and Siberia. Maps from the 1500s through the 1800s consistently show it as a patchwork of nomadic tribes, Mongols, Turks, and various Tatar groups, not as a single advanced civilization. These scholars point to documented historical records from travelers like Marco Polo, who spent years traversing these regions and never once mentioned free energy technology or architectural marvels. Instead, he described exactly what you'd expect: mind-nomadic peoples living in temporary structures, moving with the seasons, following ancient trade routes that connected east and west. The linguistic evidence seems equally damning. The word Tartaria itself appears to be a European corruption that intentionally evoked Tartaris, the Greek underworld, reflecting medieval prejudices against Eastern peoples rather than any factual description. It was a convenient way to label everything beyond the known world as barbaric and dangerous. But here's where things get interesting. The mud flood theory. Mitres, one of the central pillars supporting the Tartaria conspiracy, faces brutal scrutiny from geologists who insist there's no evidence for a planetary catastrophe in the 1800s. They explain those mysteriously buried first floors and basement windows as simple urban development. Cities like Seattle and Chicago raised their street levels after devastating fires and floods, creating the illusion that buildings had been partially buried when they were actually elevated for practical reasons. The giant skeleton discoveries that conspiracy theorists cite as proof of Tartarian inhabitants, debunkers trace most of these claims to 19th century newspaper hoaxes or misidentified mammoth bones. The Smithsonian Institution has repeatedly stated that no such remains exist in their collections, explaining any missing evidence as the result of poor preservation techniques, not deliberate concealment. Yet something strange happens when you dig deeper into these official explanations. The dismissals sometimes feel too quick, too convenient. Take the architectural evidence, for example. Skeptics claim that elaborate World's Fair buildings were simply temporary structures made from staff plaster over wooden frames. But archived photographs show construction techniques that seem remarkably advanced for their supposed time period, and the speed of construction defies explanation even with modern methods. The educational angle reveals even more troubling questions. Critics argue that school curricula have systematically marginalized Asian history, focusing almost exclusively on Greek and Roman civilizations, while glossing over the rich cultures that dominated the territories once labeled as Tartaria. Is this simply Western-centric bias, or something more deliberate? Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix threw gasoline on this fire by presenting evidence of advanced Ice Age civilizations destroyed by cataclysmic events. While archaeologists condemned the series as pseudoscience, millions of viewers found his arguments compelling enough to question mainstream historical narratives. The fact that the series faced intense backlash from academic institutions only fueled suspicions of a cover-up. The Society of American Archaeology's fierce condemnation of Hancock's work raises its own questions. They argue that attributing ancient achievements to mysterious others undermines indigenous histories. But what if those mysterious others weren't alien visitors or lost Atlantean miners? What if they were simply advanced human civilizations that have been systematically erased from our collective memory? The consistency in old maps presents another puzzle that debunkers struggle to address satisfactorily. Yes, cartographers often copied each other's work, perpetuating errors across generations. But the specific details about Tartarian territories appear across multiple independent sources, suggesting either remarkable coordination among mapmakers or the documentation of something that actually existed. The emotional intensity surrounding this debate reveals something deeper than academic disagreement. On Reddit forums and YouTube comment sections, the ridicule directed at Tartaria believers often seems disproportionate to the claims being made. Why does the mere suggestion of a hidden civilization trigger such visceral reactions from supposedly objective researchers? Perhaps it's because the implications go far beyond historical curiosity. If Tartaria was real Mishus, if an advanced civilization was deliberately erased from our history books, then everything we've been taught about human progress, about the inevitable march of technology, about who controls knowledge and why, becomes suspect. The dangers of this line of thinking are real and documented. Pseudo-historical beliefs can evolve into extremist ideologies that romanticize imaginary golden ages while demonizing modern institutions. The anti-vaccine movement shows how distrust of established expertise can have deadly consequences when speculation replaces scientific evidence. But there's an equally dangerous trap waiting on the other side. When legitimate questions are dismissed with ridicule rather than evidence, when curiosity is met with condescension, it drives people toward increasingly radical explanations. The harder institutions push back against questioning, the more suspicious their motives appear to those already inclined toward conspiracy thinking. The polarization is tearing communities apart. Families split between those who accept official histories and those who see cover-ups in every textbook. The middle ground manamal, that space where healthy skepticism meets rigorous inquiry, is disappearing as both sides retreat into increasingly extreme positions. What if the real conspiracy isn't about hidden empires or advanced technologies? What if it's simpler and more insidious, the gradual erosion of our ability to think critically about information, to hold uncertainty without demanding absolute answers, to question authority without abandoning reason entirely? But what if we've been asking the wrong questions all along? What if the real story isn't about whether Tartaria existed, but about why we desperately need it to have existed? What if those heated forum debates and academic dismissals are missing the most important truth of all, that something profound is stirring in the collective human consciousness, calling us toward a future that ancient maps and buried cities are only beginning to reveal. The censorship Graham Hancock faced wasn't just about challenging archaeological timelines. It exposed something far more dangerous to established power structures, the possibility that human potential has been systematically suppressed, that we've been conditioned to accept limitations that our ancestors would have found laughable. When Netflix faced unprecedented pressure to remove his series, when academic institutions coordinated attacks against his research, they weren't just protecting scientific integrity. They were defending a worldview that depends on our belief that current civilization represents the pinnacle of human achievement. Yet across the globe, anomalies persist that refuse to be explained away by conventional theories. Star forts scattered across continents that generate measurable electromagnetic pulses during solar flares. Ancient domes where compasses spin wildly without explanation. Ruins where visitors consistently report the same vivid visions of communities gathering under crystalline structures that amplified human consciousness, of airships gliding silently across borders that existed only in the imagination. These aren't tourist curiosities or mass hallucinations. Independent researchers using modern equipment have documented unexplained energy signatures at these sites. Theta brainwave activity spikes in certain locations, suggesting that something beyond our current understanding is embedded in the stones themselves. It's as if the consciousness of an entire civilization left psychic imprints that still pulse with life centuries after their physical forms crumbled into dust. The survivors of whatever catastrophe erased this advanced world didn't simply vanish. They scattered like seeds on the wind, carrying fragments of forbidden knowledge into our modern era. Historical records dismissed as folklore speak of mysterious wanderers appearing in Europe and America during the early 1800s wall, the exact period when the orphan trains began redistributing displaced populations across empty territories. These enigmatic figures carried strange artifacts that defied explanation, crystal shards that glowed under moonlight, maps etched with constellations that didn't match any known star charts, and most intriguingly, detailed accounts of flying machines that danced with the aurora borealis. Modern debunkers dismiss these as tall tales, but what if they were actually the testimonies of refugees from a civilization whose technology made our current achievements seem primitive? The descendants of these survivors may have preserved their ancestral knowledge through oral traditions that evolved into myths of hidden kingdoms. Shambhala, Agartha, inner earth realms where Tartarian wisdom supposedly endures. Remote viewing sessions documented on fringe research platforms describe contact with these echoes, visions of towering figures, teaching free energy principles while warning humanity to break the cycles of collapse that destroyed their own golden age. This brings us to the most hopeful aspect of the entire mystery knot, the possibility that we're not doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. The Five Eras theory suggests that human civilization moves in recurring waves, each golden age rising higher than the last before crashing into deliberate resets, orchestrated by forces that profit from our ignorance. Tartaria may have been the fourth era's pinnacle, achieving a harmony between technology and consciousness that our current plastic age can barely imagine. But what if we're approaching the moment when that cycle can finally be broken? Modern researchers experimenting with resonance frequencies and scalar energy are rediscovering principles that may have powered the Tartarian Empire. YouTube demonstrations of homemade Tesla coils drawing power from ambient electromagnetic fields hint at technologies that could revolutionize our relationship with energy itself. Government black projects may already be reverse engineering these discoveries, powering secret installations with free energy devices while maintaining artificial scarcity for the general population. But knowledge has a way of leaking out, and independent researchers are making breakthroughs that could soon make centralized energy control obsolete. The psychic remnants offer even more profound possibilities. Visitors to sites like the Bosnian pyramids and Scotland's vitrified forts report remarkably consistent experiences, dreams of communities that solved conflicts through resonance rather than force, where individual consciousness merged temporarily with collective intelligence to tackle problems that would stump our greatest minds today. Parapsychology studies, though marginalized by mainstream science, have documented measurable changes in brain activity at these locations. If we could fully understand and harness these effects, we might access something far more valuable than free energy minor, the wisdom of an entire civilization encoded in stone and crystal, waiting for humanity to evolve enough to receive it. The educational implications are staggering. Instead of hiding alternative histories, we could be teaching students about cyclical civilizations, preparing them to recognize and avoid the patterns that led to previous collapses. Imagine curricula that integrated Graham Hancock's cataclysm theories with traditional timelines, encouraging critical thinking about both mainstream and alternative narratives. The real danger isn't pseudo-history leading people astray. It's the stagnation that comes from accepting official stories without question. Online communities dedicated to Tartarian research are already embodying the collaborative spirit that may have defined their lost civilization. Crowdsourcing analyses, sharing discoveries, proposing solutions inspired by ancient technologies adapted for modern challenges. Cultural artifacts provide additional hope. Siberian folk music contains melodies that induce altered states of consciousness, possibly remnants of Tartarian sound technologies designed to heal both individuals and communities. Crop circles continue to appear with geometric patterns that mirror the star fort designs scattered across continents, as if descendants of the scattered survivors are still trying to communicate essential knowledge through the only means available. As we face our own potential civilizational collapse, rising seas that echo Atlantis, climate chaos that mirrors the catastrophes described in ancient texts, we have an unprecedented opportunity to learn from the past instead of repeating it. The airships of Tartaria symbolize the mobility needed to survive crisis. Their crystal technologies prefigure the renewable energy innovations that could save our planet from industrial destruction. But the path forward demands unprecedented courage. Reclaiming free energy could disrupt entire economic systems, triggering resistance from entrenched powers who profit from artificial scarcity. Suppressed patents for over-unity devices reveal the lengths to which authorities will go to maintain control over humanity's energy needs. Yet hope persists in grassroots movements building off-grid communities, experimenting with resonance technologies to heal environments scarred by industrial excess. If we truly are descendants of Tartarian survivors, our DNA may hold dormant keys to capabilities our current civilization has forgotten how to access. The whispers of that lost empire grow louder each day, not from crumbling ruins but from the awakening consciousness of humanity itself. The train has left the station, carrying us toward a destination that ancient maps can only hint at, the future where the forgotten harmonies of human potential might finally be reclaimed. The enigma beckons, the choice is ours. What if international collaborations unearth sealed vaults, revealing blueprints for anti-gravity airships, propelling humanity to stars while healing Earth? As inheritors of this legacy, we stand at a crossroads, succumb to cycles or forge ahead, reclaiming free energy to power equitable futures. The anomalies persist, glowing crystals in museums, humming forts under storms remind us that hope isn't lost but latent, awaiting our spark. Sleep well amidst these enduring mysteries, dreaming of the dawn we might yet revive. I am Mr. H. If these reflections stir your imagination, consider subscribing to Mystery History for Sleep and enabling notifications. Together, we'll uncover more paths to tomorrow's wonders. Good night. But what if we're on the verge of the greatest discovery in human history? What if international teams of researchers, working in secret beyond the reach of corporate suppression and academic gatekeeping, are already unearthing sealed Tartarian vaults that contain the blueprints for technologies we can barely imagine? Anti-gravity airships that could revolutionize space exploration while simultaneously healing our damaged planet. Propulsion systems that bend space-time itself, making interstellar travel as simple as crossing an ocean. Energy devices that could power entire civilizations without leaving so much as a carbon footprint. These aren't science fiction fantasies. These are engineering realities waiting to be rediscovered by minds brave enough to look beyond official narratives. The evidence surrounds us, hidden in plain sight for those who know where to look. Crystalline artifacts in museum storage rooms that glow with unexplained light when no one is watching. Star forts that generate electromagnetic pulses during geomagnetic storms, their geometric angles still channeling forces that mainstream science insists don't exist. Underground chambers sealed for centuries, their walls covered in mathematical formulas that could unlock the secrets of free energy and conscious evolution. As inheritors of this extraordinary legacy, we stand at the most crucial crossroads in human history. We can choose to succumb to the same cycles that have trapped our species for millennia, nice cycles of progress and collapse, of discovery and suppression, of golden ages followed by devastating resets. Or we can choose something unprecedented to consciously break those cycles and forge ahead into a future where the scattered wisdom of our ancestors finally transforms into the foundation for a truly enlightened civilization. The tools are already in our hands, free energy technologies that could power equitable futures for every human being on the planet, genetic keys that could unlock dormant potentials in our DNA, psychic techniques that could help us access the Akashic records, where Tartarian knowledge still pulses with life, waiting for worthy minds to download its secrets. The anomalies persist because hope persists. Those glowing crystals aren't just museum curiosity, as they're beacons calling us back to our true heritage. Those humming forts aren't just historical ruins, they're power stations waiting to be reactivated by people who understand that consciousness and technology were never meant to be separate. Hope isn't lost. It's simply latent, dormant like seeds in winter soil, waiting for the right conditions to burst into unprecedented bloom. And those conditions are gathering all around us, in the minds of researchers who refuse to accept official limitations, in the hearts of communities building sustainable alternatives, in the dreams of visionaries who see beyond the artificial boundaries of our current reality. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, let your consciousness expand beyond the constraints of ordinary thinking. Dream of the legacy we might yet revive. Dream of star forts humming with clean energy that powers thriving communities. Dream of airships dancing through aurora-painted skies, carrying explorers to worlds that ancient maps only hinted at. Dream of healing chambers where sound and light repair what centuries of suppression have damaged in both body and soul. Most importantly, dream of yourself as part of this awakening near, not as a passive observer of hidden history, but as an active participant in the most extraordinary transformation our species has ever attempted. I'm Mr. H, and if these reflections have stirred something deep in your imagination, if you feel that familiar pull toward mysteries that mainstream narratives can't explain, then you belong with this community of truth seekers and possibility builders. Consider joining us by subscribing to Mystery History for Sleep and enabling those notifications, because together we're not just uncovering forgotten paths to ancient wisdom. We're mapping new routes to tomorrow's wonders, and the journey has only just begun. Sweet dreams, fellow travelers. The future is calling, and it sounds remarkably like home. Good night.